Well, let's get more on this story with Antoni Kapcia, who's a professor of Latin American history at the University of Nottingham. Antoni, good to have you with us. So we've had the result for the first vote. Bizarrely, they've decided to split the vote into two, and there is, within the realms of possibility, a chance that she might be impeached, but still able to run for office in a couple of years' time, which seems a bit strange.
It's strange, and I suspect it's a rearguard action rather than anything else. It seems unlikely that the decision will go against the opposition to Rousseff. The opposition clearly controls both houses of parliament, and it's only a matter of time. I really don't see any likelihood that she'll be allowed to run again.
So she's been stripped of her presidency. Michel Temer now confirmed as the country's leader. He himself, though, is not very well liked in Brazil.
This is such a complicated situation, and always about much more than just corruption and much more about Rousseff. It's a divisive issue. The fact that the opposition has such a domination in Parliament, in both houses of Parliament, doesn't really reflect the views on the street, where there is a fairly broad swathe of opinion in favour of the Workers' Party and in favour of Rousseff, and who does consider this to be a coup. I'm not saying it's a majority. I think it's actually split down the middle. But it is very likely that whoever takes over from Rousseff, whoever is elected or takes over temporarily, will not be popular at all. And so we can really see instability as the likely outcome of this for the next, well, should we say, several months at least.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big crisis for Brazil, isn't there? I mean, not just what's happening to Rousseff, but the Petrobras corruption scandal, the fact that the previous president is about to go on trial. I mean, ordinary Brazilians must be lacking faith in their political system right now.
I think that's true, and that's why it is such a crisis, rather than just focusing on the individuals. And I think the fact that, for example, there were large demonstrations, mostly middle-class demonstrations, calling for the military to intervene after the whole experience of military rule for at least 21, if not more years, that really is worrying for many, many Brazilians to say, honestly, do we really want the military back in again? Especially as the military, as far as the evidence seems to indicate, do not themselves want to be involved again. It does actually have very, very interesting and worrying echoes of Chile at the end of Allende's period. Very, very similar division of opinion, very similar demonstrations and calls for military involvement.
That's interesting. And I guess what Brazilians want at the end of the day is a clean government, an end to all the corruption scandals, the bribery, the slush funds. I mean, do they believe that all of this that's going on now, the investigation, is going to clean up Brazil's politics, or do they think this is how it's going to be for a long time?
That's a $64 million question. They hope it will clean it up. I don't think they have any faith in it doing that, because there is a kind of distrust of the whole classe politica, the whole political class. And disappointment, of course, is that the Workers' Party, which was so popular, was so radical, and at grassroots often still is very radical, actually became as guilty of corruption as the other parties that were previously that had dominated Brazil.
So, final question for the moment, Antoni. I mean, where does Brazil go from here? I mean, you've got the interim president being confirmed now as the president. You've got the first female president stripped of power. You've got, a poor economy in Brazil. What happens next?
Again, another question that no one knows the answer to. I suspect it is likely to end up dividing the parties. The Workers' Party is unlikely, I think, to survive in its current form. But it's not easy to say that, actually. I mean, that's one thing I would suspect, but that's from Britain. That's the British perspective. On the ground, the Workers' Party still has a lot of legitimacy and a lot of support, especially, as I said, at the grassroots. So it's not impossible that there could well be a groundswell of opinion against the impeachment, because the impeachment does, as I say, for many Workers' Party supporters, does feel like a coup.
Antoni, great to get your thoughts there. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis.